Women in the military is a constantly changing aspect. One of the most prominent changes is the transition into combat positions, which can be seen in the timeline from 1953 to 1994. In 1953, women were recruited by the military, but they could only hold traditional jobs such as nurses and secretaries. Yet by 1994, certain combat positions were made available to them. The transitioning of women into combat positions relies on disproving the assumption that women degrade the ability to wage war based on the capabilities of female soldiers. Now, the belief that women would degrade the ability to wage war is based on differences between the male and female sexes. This is because numerous studies were done and it was shown that women are only about 80% as strong as men. Additionally, pregnant women can be seen as a burden to their unit because they are restricted from doing daily routines such as night watch duty and driving machinery because fatigue and lightheadedness could cause a hazard. Thus, they were seen as incapable of going into combat because they could be a hazard. This belief is seen in the 1950s and to the late 1980s as being very strong, as any time that the role of a woman was broken from the tradition, it was met with heavy resistance. This can be seen in 1967 when Congress made an amendment to the Combat Exclusion Act so that the 2% restriction on the military, which was that the military could only be made up of 2% of women, was lifted. As well as in 1976, when women were able to enroll in West Point in the U.S. Naval Academy. And in 1978, when women were allowed to be on non-combat U.S. Navy ships. Men at West Point were reported as to saying that they did not feel that women should be there because it wasn't their traditional role. As well as the Armed Service Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives stated that when it came to the military, men and women simply could not be equal. However, key events in the late 1980s and the early 1990s shows that this belief of women not being able to have combat positions changed. This is because women who participated in the Panama Invasion and the Persian Gulf War disproved the assumption that women degrade the ability to wage war based on their capabilities. In 1989, the United States invaded Panama because their military dictator had been indicted for drug trafficking charges. United States Army Captain Linda Bray led a troop of 30 military cops in a gunfight. This is generally seen as the first time a woman led United States troops into combat, even though she was not specifically supposed to be in combat. Captain Bray's actions was met by nationwide attention and approval. The then White House spokesman, Marlin Fitzwater, was reported saying that this was an important mission. A woman did it, and she did an outstanding job. The Persian Gulf War also serves an example of how women soldiers disproved the assumption that they degraded the ability to wage war. More than 33,000 women soldiers took place were a part of Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield. Even though they were not given combat positions, they still had to drive machinery. They still piloted helicopters over battlefield areas. They directed Patriot missiles. They guarded prisoner of war camps. In the end, 15 women soldiers sacrificed their lives while waging war in the Persian Gulf. Dick Cheney said that without women, we would not have won that war. After the events of the Persian Gulf War and the Panama Invasion, changes began to be made. In 1994, Congress amended the Defense Authorization Act of 1992 so that women would be permitted to serve on combat ships and aircrafts. This change can be seen in today as well, as by 2016, all combat positions were made available to women, as well as there is a bill currently in the United States Senate which would allow women to sign up for the draft. Thus proving that the transition of women into combat positions relies on disproving the assumption that women degrade the ability to wage war based on their capabilities. This is proven because up until the Panama Invasion and the Persian Gulf War, women were not given combat permission, and also any time that they were broken away from the traditional role or traditional woman job, there was very much people did not like it. And so, but then after they proved themselves in the Persian Gulf War and the Panama invasion, they were granted the ability to go into combat, and people approved of this. Thank you.